Henry Kissinger. I mean, for half a century, that name has just been synonymous with power, with diplomacy, and yeah, with a ton of controversy. He was an absolute giant of the 20th century, a guy who literally reshaped the world. But to really truly understand his impact, we've got to look past the myths and all the paradoxes that surround him.
So our guide on this journey is going to be Walter Isaacson's incredible biography. Now, Isaacson had just unprecedented access. We're talking dozens of interviews and even Kissinger's own private papers. So what that gives us is a uniquely balanced look at this unbelievably complex figure.
And right away, that brings us to the core question, the central paradox of his entire legacy. Was he this brilliant architect of global stability, or was he a completely cynical manipulator of power? As we're about to see, the answer is, well, it's a complicated and frankly often unsettling mix of both.
To really get the man, you have to start at the beginning. I mean, his entire life, his whole worldview was shaped by his early experience as an outsider, as a refugee, who clawed his way right into the very heart of the American establishment. Just think about the sheer speed of this journey for a second. In less than a single decade, he goes from being a refugee fleeing the total collapse of his society to being a soldier in the army that's imposing order on that chaos, and then, finally, a student at Harvard. This experience of seeing chaos up close and personal, it didn't just give him ambition. No, it burned a core belief into him that stability, at almost any cost, was the highest possible good.
So from a young age, he was known for his intellect. But he was also described as being kind of insecure, very reflective. And this combination, this mix of brilliant strategic thinking and this deep personal insecurity, that would become a hallmark of his entire career. It really drove both his greatest successes and his most controversial actions.
And that whole formative experience we just talked about, well, it directly shaped his core philosophy. At Harvard, Kissinger didn't just study history. He started to build a doctrine, a set of rules that would guide his every single move on the world stage.
And that doctrine was realpolitik. To put it simply, it's a cold, hard look at the world. It's not about what's right or wrong in some abstract moral sense. It's about what serves the national interest based on a really clear-eyed assessment of power. Who has it, and what are they going to do with it?
And this quote just perfectly illustrates his thinking. For Kissinger, trying to inject American moralism into foreign policy wasn't just naive, it was dangerous. He truly believed that stability, the absence of a catastrophic world war, was the ultimate moral good. And to get that, you had to make tough, pragmatic, and sometimes ruthless decisions.
So you take this belief in realpolitik, and you combine it with what Isaacson calls an Nixonian atmosphere of mistrust, and what you get is an obsession with secrecy, and with centralizing all the power inside the White House.
Okay, so the most famous example of this was something they called the channel. Picture this. Richard Nixon basically tells the Soviet ambassador to just ignore America's own State Department. He says, talk to Henry. I mean, this was an absolutely unprecedented move. It cut out the entire foreign policy bureaucracy and put Kissinger at the very center of every single critical negotiation with the Soviet Union. But this kind of secrecy had a heavy, heavy price. It allowed for shocking actions like the secret bombing of Cambodia to be completely hidden from Congress and the American public. It led to Kissinger personally authorizing wiretaps on his own staff just to plug leaks. This wasn't just about control. It created this atmosphere of paranoia that would ultimately help poison the entire administration.
And yet, here's the twist. While he was operating in the shadows, Kissinger was also building this extraordinary public persona. The once shy professor completely transformed himself into a global superstar.
And nothing, absolutely nothing, captures this transformation better than his most famous quote. See, he wasn't just wielding power, he was reveling in it. He was dating actresses, he became a fixture in gossip columns, he clearly enjoyed all the glamour that came with the job.
And this is the crucial point. You have to get this. There were always two Kissingers operating at the same time. On one hand, you have the brilliant strategist, reshaping the entire world with historic openings to China and détente with the Soviet Union. And then, right alongside him, you have the paranoid infighter, consumed with battling rivals like Secretary of State Rogers for every single scrap of influence. The media, of course, just could not get enough of him. They called him the inscrutable Occidental during his trips to China. He was this fascinating mix of a somber German intellectual and a Washington socialite, and that combination made him a constant source of public fascination. Okay, so after all of that, where does this all leave us?
Well, after decades in the spotlight, Kissinger's legacy remains one of the most fiercely debated in all of modern history.
This slide really just lays out the fundamental conflict of his career. It's like a balance sheet. The achievements on one side, opening China, détente with the Soviets, these are monumental acts of realpolitik, prioritizing global stability over any ideology. But then you look at the criticisms, and they are the direct consequence of that exact same philosophy. The secret bombing of Cambodia, the destabilization of Chile, actions where the human cost was seen as secondary to strategic advantage.
This quote from Admiral Zumwalt, who was a top military leader at the time, it really just captures the depth of anger his methods could provoke. Zumwalt felt that Kissinger's secret dealings, especially around ending the Vietnam War, betrayed American principles and sacrificed honor for what he saw as a fragile temporary peace.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question raised by Kissinger's career. Is a foreign policy based on cold, hard national interest inherently amoral? Or, as Kissinger himself would have argued, is creating a stable world order, one that's free from major power conflict, actually the highest moral calling a statesman can pursue? It's a question that, honestly, we are still grappling with today.